and welcome to the hashtag IBMI Everywhere show. Thank you guys so much, Peter. Always a pleasure seeing you guys out on LinkedIn, and really glad to be able to talk to you guys today. Thanks so much.
Morning.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Oh yeah. So really, a couple things I want to learn more about you guys. I mean, you guys are definitely active on LinkedIn and very involved in the IBMI community. Don, always appreciate all your likes of all the posts I do. And Peter, you've even helped out with some of the stuff that I've done for the hashtag IBMI Everywhere series in the past, and with some pictures and and all the things that you've done. So really appreciate all of that. And I want to learn more about you guys, learn a little bit more about your background on the IBMI. I learn a little bit about how you guys even got together. And let's start from there. Peter, you want to start us off? How did you get involved with IBMI?
I started, I think that was 1989 in Germany, learning RPG2 and SSD and OCL on a System 36. And then, so I worked for a software house. We had an ERP system which we are selling and customizing. And then the IBMI course of the AS400 named Silver Lake, and joined using us, the company I'm working for now. And since then we are having a lot of fun here because it's a really welcoming company, and we have a really nice environment, and it's fun to work here, and I love my job every day.
Wow. And Don?
Well, my journey actually started on the IBM PC in 1983 and moved to the System 38 first, and then the AS400 in 1989. We started the same year, Peter and I, in the mini computing world, as it was called then.
What have you guys seen? Has it changed a little bit since you started?
Yeah, I still remember Twinax, and I remember soldering the Twinax plugs together, and that was it in the old times. There was no internet, and there was no TCP/IP and no Ethernet. But yes, a lot of change.
Would you say the change is good or different? How would you describe that change?
I think
That's Peter or Don.
I had seen IBM move forward slowly and cautiously with technology, and that has increased a lot over the last, say, 5 years or so. And it's a good way to be, I think. That's why they're still in business. That's why Yissingers are still in business.
What do you mean by cautious? Like they're not just like jumping at the AI stuff and chomping at the bit to do stuff. Like what is that, like an example, or like me, you want to share something with that you've seen that?
I think IBM was never on the bleeding edge technologically way back when the S400 first started, and it was that way for 20 years or so. And I still say they aren't quite on the bleeding edge, but they're pretty close, which is a whole sea change for AS400, IBMI, and all the other names that it's had.
And is that, when we talk about not being on the bleeding edge, like is that an interesting conversation, because a lot of times companies want to be at the bleeding edge, and why do you find that the not being quote on the bleeding edge is like making it more stable? Like what's helpful, or why you see that's helpful to the platform?
Becoming closer to the bleeding edge means that we're more modern, that we're not taking, because we're not on the bleeding edge, we're not taking the risks that the newest, fastest, best thing out there takes, which is hoping to be adopted by everybody quickly and make a pile of money and get out. I've seen all too many software and hardware companies go that way over the years. IBM has not, although the speed of innovation has increased dramatically. I think they're keeping it in check properly while still innovating pretty well.
Wow, interesting. For you, Peter, when you're going from pre-internet days to today, where do you see the biggest changes, or would you agree with Don that IBM is still like sticking on the right below the bleeding edge? Like how would you describe the IBMI environment?
I think it is a very useful platform right now. It's just that there were a lot of changes, which so in the old days, the AS400 was an isolated thing. It was running on Twinax. So with the change to Ethernet, to the internet, to TCP/IP, of course, aspects of safety and security and keeping people out you don't want to have on your machine, that is a complete different aspect. So firewalling, VPNs, access and control to your machine, so that widens the aspect definitely very much. So it is nice that the machine can do all these. We are using web services now to communicate with UPS, for example, for creating our shipments. The good thing is that the IBMI is a really securable machine, but you have to do your homework to keep it safe and to make it safe.
Got it. A question for you guys is that I guess more of a personal question. How did you and Don get together? Wow, what was that little story?
Yeah, that's a funny story. I think in 2014 or 2015, one of our neighbors sold his house and the new guy moved in and we started to talk. And he said, oh, I'm working on something you probably don't know. It's called IBM. And I said, what? So that is Patrick Staudacker. He is an IBM recruiter specialized on finding people and bringing demand and offer together. And when we had here an open position at using us and we needed a good guy, I talked to Patrick and Patrick brought Don and us together, and after having some talks, we found it was a good fit, and since then we are working happily together. And
One second, just to clarify something, you live right next to Patrick? Like he's your next door neighbor?
He is my next door neighbor. Our dogs are playing together. We are both beekeepers, so I help him with his hive, and he helps me with my hive. We all have chickens and geese, so sometimes we watch their chickens when they are going on the trip, and sometimes they watch for ours.
Oh my gosh,
Wait,
that's crazy. I did not realize you guys were that close. That's a really, really small world. So, Don, how'd that go for you? How was that transition coming over to Usinger?
I think everybody, when they come into a new company, it was new for me, has a transition period where they learn the people around and learn what the atmosphere is. And I'd like to say that my transition was very smooth. With Peter, it certainly was. But with the business, maybe not so much. I had to earn my wings, so to speak. So.
Well, you're still here, so I mean, I think you probably earned them.
Yeah, I think yeah. Yeah, and the special thing is we are not only doing the IBMI, so Don and me, we are the complete IT team, and we do everything. So it's not only the IBMI, we also do the firewall, we do the phone system, we do Active Directory, the Office 365, we administrate the MFA, configure the switches, and Don, as we are only two, so when I'm out, Don needs to be able to do everything too. So there was a lot of learning, figure the phone system, when we need a new phone extension in there, whatever it is, we do it. And that is a lot of fun.
How do you guys manage that? I've seen this a lot in IBMI shops, that there's basically just you and another, or there's like two people all together, or even one, managing the hardware, managing the OS, and managing, the entire IT staff, and being that main guy. How does that work? Like, how do you guys manage all that? There's so many different tasks.
Constant learning.
And always being willing to step in where the other is busy, or whoever can get to it first to jump on the most critical thing.
Wow.
But I think interfaces with the website, so we handle it all. It's fun.
How do you guys learn all of that? I mean, that's something which is like, that takes a lot of different people typically to be able to manage those types of different tasks, like managing an OS and managing hardware, different things, like then development. So how do you learn all of that?
Trying to stay up to date.
And sometimes painfully. Lots of reading. What was it? Edison that said he found, 200 and something ways not to make a light bulb, right?
Mm-hmm.
And finally found a way to make a light bulb. Well, that sort of things happen. Everybody makes mistakes, and we learn from ours quickly because we must.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting.
I think we are in good shape. We have we are on Power 10, running with an HMC, which is running on ESXi. We have our machine sitting in a data center. Actually, it was Don and me who, on a Sunday morning, when we had our Power 10 here in the headquarters, shut it down, did in the truck, and brought it over to a data center and got it there in the rack. And on Monday morning, everything was working. Everybody could sign in. Nobody noticed the difference, but the machine was moved from the headquarters to the data center where she is now.
You guys did that by yourselves?
He's not telling you about the 6 months of planning that went into that.
Side note.
Yes,
that's amazing.
The changing of IP addresses, of course, and the VPN. Yep, it worked so smooth, nobody noticed it.
Wow. And a question for you is, I mean, one of the things I've noticed in being in the IBMI community is that there's a lot of IBMI in the Midwest. Like I'm in Cleveland and like Milwaukee, where you guys are at, and Chicago, and just that entire Midwest area. Why do you guys see, or why do you think that the IBMI is so prevalent in that area of the world?
Banking and manufacturing, particularly manufacturing, there's a lot here, a lot of small, medium-sized business, and AS400 was pretty much designed for that.
Yeah, and it's an excellent platform.
Yep. That sounds about right. Are there any good stories you guys wanted to share? Any like good stories from over the years? Looks like you have something with the big fish like that in the background.
That fish was caught in, I want to say, 1935 or so by one of our founders here.
That's huge. Uh, But what? Any good stories on the IBMI?
Oh,
Oh,
that is
yeah,
an interesting family background.
yeah. Actually, both of my parents were RPG programmers, and I didn't. Yes, and also my brother is a programmer. He's a .NET programmer. But my parents, the first I saw of RPG was Colin Card's IBM 360, visiting there at the Ohio State University with my dad, who worked there. And from there, Mom got a job, I think in about 1970, working for Nationwide Insurance, and they had a System 3 at the time. She started key punching and data processing, and eventually turned into an RPG programmer. So I have the background all the way back to 1968 or so.
Oh my gosh. So you're like a second generationer of
Yeah.
RPG programmers.
Yeah.
That is so unique. Have you ever found anyone else as a second gen? The lone second gen.
Second gen programmers, yes, but none of them RPG second gen.
Wow. I mean, would you say that like that was a big influence for you when you were growing up to become or to get interested in the IBMI platform and RPG?
Not at all. It
What do
was
you
a
mean?
total accident. Yeah, I'm a college dropout, and I dropped out, and school wasn't for me. This wasn't my thing. And my dad was starting a little company, and he gave me the IBM aptitude test. And I scored so well on it, he said, "Well, do you want to work for me?" I said, "I don't know what I'm doing." "Well, I'll teach you." And so he did.
What was this AI? What was this IBM aptitude test?
There was an aptitude test that IBM gave all of their employees once upon a time. And Dad had access to that, being friends with one of the former presidents of IBM. So he had that and decided to test to see if I could do it. So
And the rest is history, as they
the
say.
rest is history.
So when you start with your dad, what do you do for him?
Well, I started on the IBM PC with BASIC, a compiler, and a btrieve link-in, and we wrote software for churches.
What was the software like? Well, like organizing, what was it for?
Well, at that time, the IRS was beginning to ask churches to record people's giving above a certain amount. And so people's giving had to be tracked. And there wasn't really any, I mean, the IBM PC was brand new. There really wasn't any software for keeping track of finances or addresses, name and addresses of your congregation or anything. And so we wrote software to do all of that.
Wow. Wow. So you basically were writing an ERP system way back when, like an accounting part.
Yeah.
So how long did you work for your dad for?
6 or 7 years, maybe. And then one day I got a look at one of my mother's paychecks. And I said, "I want me some of that. Can you find somebody who will take a chance on me?" And they did. And
So your dad helped you get out of working for him, and he got you a new gig?
my mom got me out,
Oh, there you go.
which was just as well. You know, I was old enough to be on my own by that time and should have been. So
That's great. Great. That's an amazing story. Yeah, I normally don't hear about people having their dad teaching them ropes of RPG and then learning from them and then, and working for them. That's an amazing story. And your mom also, that is, a family of programmers. Wow. Peter, do you have the same thing?
So actually, no.
So do you have any stories you want to share?
Actually, this morning I was looking through old paperwork and I found letters going to IBM from 1971, where they did the design of our customer master file for us.
1971, and this program's still running?
Actually, John had the fun to bring the customer master, which was pretty much still in the shape from 1970 to a modern world. And he did this with a great approach. John, I want to highlight that a little bit. You had a great idea.
It's still actually ongoing. You know, there's just the two of us, and there are hundreds and hundreds of programs that use Customer Master. Tightly integrated throughout the system. Our ERP is homegrown, so what do? How do you create a new Customer Master and migrate over to it while still, I mean, do you hire, 25 contractors to come in and do it all? Well, no, this is not something we could do. Design the new Customer Master using modern database principles, data definition language, and created a couple of programs that run from triggers from the old Customer Master map it into the new customer master, and from the new customer master, map it back to the old customer master. As I'm rewriting old programming and changing it to the new customer master, it doesn't matter whether it's reading or updating one or the other, the data remains in sync. I'm down to 44 programs out of an initial list of just over 400. The real biggies are left, order entry and order processing are left, but all the ancillary things, reporting a whole bunch of inline batch processes that update balances, that sort of thing, have all been done. And it's transparent to the users because they don't know whether they're using old or new customer master, and that's the whole point. What that lets me do is to work on programs one at a time and to get them either rewrite or to retrofit them to the new customer master. What it also lets me do is new customer master to have balances that are large enough to contain the numbers, because as users have grown over the years, we now have customers that we do more monthly business than we can store in our customer master balances.
That's great. Why, just a curiosity question, why didn't you guys just kind of rip and replace it? Why didn't you just go out and purchase a new ERP and just table what you had from the 70s and instead of doing this major project?
That's the age-old modernization question, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Well, there's a reason using our state in business since 1880. The software kind of reflects the way we do business, and our special business rules that are our special sauce. You go and buy a new ERP, you're going to have to go and find all the old functionality and then retrofit it into the new. This is just as big of a project and in many cases more expensive and dangerous. Yes. What do you do? How do you get the old functionality that differentiates your business into the new? You have to. You want to keep staying in businesses. The things that make you unique are written into the software. They're written into the RPG code. So you want to carry those forward as much as possible, at least where you manage to do it. Rip and replace where possible, especially where we have RPG code that's 35 and 40 years old, that newer RPG programmers cannot understand. And even some of us who've been doing it a long time have struggled to understand.
One of the things I've noticed in your conversation about your ERP is the fact that you've made sure it's kind of like modernization without disruption, which means that you haven't made it get messy, that your users haven't changed, haven't felt the difference. And like Peter, as you mentioned, like when you redid your Power 10s in the data center, no one noticed. And I think that's the principles you guys are following. That the business still runs and the platform is still chugging along, but the changes you're making are subtle, but they are big and make ripple effects for the generation coming up. That sounds about right. It's an amazing and great project, and good for you guys. You're embarking on that and have almost finished.
That's just customer master. I think the next one's probably going to be the item master, and that's going to be just as invasive.
There's always more to do, but the good thing is we are on the Power 10. We are using free format RPG. We are using RDI. EDM is not allowed any longer here. So we are using the modern tools, and yeah, it's fun to work with free format RPG. It is so powerful, and what you can do with it is unbelievable. So we are on a good platform, and we love our job.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's the best thing. You guys are loving what you do every single day. And a question for you with regards to the IBMI future. Where do you see it going?
Continued expansion. I'm loving to see new open source. One of the fun things Peter did as a project here was PDFing things and using Python to do the extractions called from QShell from an RPG program to do it. So we have a system that is much more open. At least we have the ability to get out of it, and that's kind of a key, because our vendors and our partners will use new software, new technologies, and we need to be able to connect to it. Thankfully, IBM has seen the light regarding that and given us tools, or at least given us access to tools through PACE and AIX to get to those places much more easily than we had to do in the past.
Sure. I mean, is that like you're saying it's more open, like you're effectively able to use APIs to be able to call out to the new programs or that your vendors are using? Is that like that the API ecosystem? Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, Peter, I guess you can talk about that with UPS and the labels, huh?
Yes. Yeah, so we are talking directly from our IBM I to UPS and using the web services for creating shipments, printing the labels, doing rating, doing tracking, all this out of our IBM I.
Wow.
That's a great thing. That's a great thing to do. You can do web services. You know, Scott Clemens did a lot of groundwork on that, and he provided a lot of free stuff which you can implement in your RPGs to make it a little bit easier, and that works all great. So it was a fun project to do this. I learned a lot of that while I was doing this, and yep, it's now
Wow.
something that can put a checkbox on. Yes, we can do this.
That's a really interesting. I mean, I'm glad you guys. I mean, this is exactly the thing is that you guys are really doing what I think IBM is trying to get people to do is to utilize the newer open source things, including PACE and AIX and all the other things that they're adding to the OS and being able to get it from being getting the IBM I to be the IBM I, which is I for integration. And being able to integrate it with other things. And it's an amazing journey you guys have been on. I would love to see what like the difference is, like what it started off looking like to now. It's probably like a night and day difference. Right. Well, I really appreciate your time, guys. Thank you very much for joining. It's always a pleasure to have you guys and always nice to see you out on LinkedIn. And if anyone else wants to join the hashtag My Everywhere show, please feel free to reach out. You know where to find me. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me, DM me. We'll talk soon. And thanks so much.